Hello, everybody. Hope you're doing fantastically well. It is Connor here, and we are back with a little bit of a Leeds news update. I've not done this in quite a while, to be honest with you, especially live. I mean, the old rumour mill was going through January, but actually doing it live is something that I've not done in, I don't know, maybe the best part of 18 months. So let's get into it anyway. I just want to discuss a few things that are going on with Leeds United at this moment in time. As you can see, I am in my car. So, bear with. No edited videos today. It's just a quick update on my day off. Hope you're all doing fantastically well. Get in the comment section below. I'll try read out as many comments as I can, guys. But as you can see, the topics are along the bottom of the screen here that we're going to be discussing today. So, listen, what did we see last night with regards to England? So, 1-1 against Hungary. What was the big missing compartment of that side? It was Kalvin Phillips, wasn't there? There was a lot of movement from Hungary coming through the middle of the park. And if I'm honest with you, I think that he was a big miss. I think that structure that Kalvin Phillips brings is naturally going to be a big miss for England nowadays. And what I wanted to talk about as well is it's now not just the Leeds compartment that misses Kalvin Phillips. It's the England department, which just shows how pivotal this guy is. He is absolutely massive now with not only everything England do on a functional perspective, but everything obviously Leeds United do, which is just going to see this guy's value soar once again. And talking about value soaring, we'll get onto Raphinha in just a little while. But listen, what this guy is doing, Kalvin Phillips, is mesmeric, and there is a lot of attention on Raphinha at this moment in time because he's an offensive player. But what Kalvin Phillips brings is it really is huge, and you saw it last night in that England setup. I just didn't think that three in the midfield. I believe it was Mount, wasn't it? I think Rice was there. I don't know if Grealish was chopping inside every now and again, but it was a huge miss him being there in terms of this, as I keep saying, the structural 4-2-3-1 that we saw from England in the summer. So Kalvin, a huge miss, and it was great to see it. It was. And listen, I'm an England fan, but foremost, I'm a Leeds United fan, and seeing that huge part of the England side missing, it just shows how big Kalvin Phillips was. And I thought Declan Rice a lot of the time was looking around for that defensive person there who was going to help him out in that middle department. So yeah, huge miss. Kalvin Phillips' importance isn't just for Leeds. So just looking at Gary's comment here, that's a bad thing for Leeds. I don't care about value in Leeds. He's priceless, to be honest with you. Yeah, I'd agree with Gary there. Hello to everybody who are Liverpool linked to Connor. We'll get onto that in just a little minute. Ali, Joe, hello. Joe Wayman. England is shit without Kalvin, says Philip. I'd completely agree. Crap watching England, isn't it? And it is without Kalvin Phillips. It just is, yeah. You don't have that Leeds perspective, that Leeds bias, which is absolutely huge. Now, the next news is Raphinha. Now, why do I want to touch on Raphinha? We spoke about this last week on One Leeds. There's a huge problem with Raphinha now. Now, we spoke about it last week, and it was broken down into little sort of elements, really. Raphinha went away with Brazil, as we all know. It's been well documented, but there's a huge issue with regards to him coming back to Leeds United now and him featuring, well, pretty instantaneously against Southampton. I said about a week ago, I don't think it will happen. I think we're going to see the likes of Dan James and Jack Harrison on either side. I just think the turnaround is going to be absolutely huge. And what have we learned today with Raphinha? What have we learned in these past couple of days with Raphinha when he's been linking up with the Brazil squad? He's literally the key player. He's been absolutely astronomical. I've watched all the highlights of him as part of my job, and he's been phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. He's the key cog, once again, that's what we're talking about with Kalvin Phillips. He's the key cog in that Brazil side, and he's the impact maker. He's the person who's making everything happen. And we've essentially found out today that he's going to be starting against Uruguay, I believe, on Friday night. Now, the turnaround, it's Thursday. Well, it won't be Thursday or Friday. I think it is Friday, depending on times. The turnaround is going to be absolutely huge. It's going to be absolutely huge for Raphinha to get back to Southampton and to start for Leeds. I think it's an 11-hour turn. It's an 11-hour flight. Sorry, obviously he's going to have to go through time zones. I think where they're playing as well is in a really remote area where he might have to get connecting flights. Basically, guys, the nooks and crannies of it, me absolutely breaking it down to you guys, is it's going to be very, very difficult for Raphinha to start against Southampton, which I think is going to be a huge blow to this Leeds United side. It's going to be massive. I mean, everything we've seen this season offensively has come through the Brazilian. I think it's difficult with Kalvin in the side, but I still think Raphinha is the most important. Genuinely, get it in the comment section below. You guys may disagree with me. I think Raphinha is the most important player in this side. I think when he's not there, I struggle to see Leeds' creative output. I struggle to see Leeds' pace. I struggle to see Leeds' complete counter-attacking aggression. There's so many different compartments. The Calvin's absolutely massive, isn't he? He's a one-man midfield. Respect to the likes of Patrick Bamford. Bamford wouldn't get the space. Fascinating to see how last season and towards the back end of last season. I'm just trying to get a couple of your comments in as well. Bobag says MESLIER won't want to go and sit on another team's bench. Surely big teams will be in for Raf. This is where the board needs to be strong and milk as much money out of it if he wants to go. Yeah, of course, we're going to be getting into that in a little bit. Some people are saying internet problems. I am on 4G, so apologies for that, guys, if that is the case. Okay, so let's move on to the next thing. Obviously, we've touched on Raphinha. Stuart Dallas came on the 67th minute last night for Northern Ireland. Obviously, Stuart has not been playing regularly for Northern Ireland, and I think obviously the reason behind that is his personal issues. There was 3 games where he missed for Northern Ireland, which is a big rarity for Stuart Dallas. That never happens. But yeah, there was 3 games where he missed, and obviously subsequently he's had a few poor performances for Leeds, to be quite honest with you, and the off the field issues clearly have been impacting on the field, and you've got to give him a little bit of slack for that. But he came on in the 67th minute last night, was unable to stop Northern Ireland from getting beaten last night 2-1, unfortunately. But obviously Stu's going to be coming back into the side, I think, at the weekend. And whether or not that's the right move or the wrong move, please get it in the comment section below. Richard is saying that Harrison's been a huge miss as well. Yeah, I don't know if he has, to be honest with you, Richard, because I think Dan James's performances have been getting better and better and better. So I don't necessarily agree with that. I think he was fantastic at the weekend against Watford as well. Now, listen, if Dan James was putting in poor performance after poor performance, I'd definitely agree with you. But I don't know what side of Jack Harrison's game we're missing, really. We've had the defensive work from Dan James, which is lauded, really, when you look at Jack Harrison. Going forward, you've had some really killer balls in, especially against Watford from Dan James. You've also got the perspective that Dan James should have had 3 penalties. You know, so we should be sitting here talking about Dan James as if he's the next big thing, you know. We really should. As I said, against Watford, some seriously dangerous balls in, which we weren't able to capitalise on. But I think Dan James has been brilliant. I think he's been getting better and better and better. So I wouldn't necessarily agree that we've been missing Jack Harrison. Jack Harrison gives us something, but I think the thing with Jack is, and I think a lot of you would agree with this, and there's a lot of people talking about this, Jack Harrison is either a 9 and 10 in terms of performance, or he's a 2 or a 3. There's no real middle ground, and I think that's something where Dan James is maybe a little bit different. Dan James will give you a 7 and 8 out of 10 most weeks. Maybe you guys think that's unfair on Jack Harrison, but I think it's either unreal performances from Jack or not very great, and you know he's out the game. So yeah, a lot of comments in here, guys. Now listen, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll touch on the Liverpool saga, because I know a lot of you guys are talking about that. From various reports this morning, Liverpool are looking at Illan MESLIER. Apparently, there have been scouts at Ellen Road, and obviously our away games now for the best part of 12 months looking at Illan MESLIER. Liverpool aren't fully convinced that they've got a competent number 2 who, whenever the time is that Alisson does move on, somebody's going to be able to fit into Alisson's shoes and be able to take that mantle. And apparently, they've been massively impressed with what they've seen from Illan MESLIER. We also know, don't we, that they've been looking at Raphinha. There's no qualms about that. I think Klopp's been asked about that several times, and he's sort of very sheepish about it, which a lot of coaches are when they're asked about Raphinha and players that others are interested in. And not only that, but Calvin Phillips has been touted for them numerous times as well. So it's going to be fascinating to see how these sort of play out. But with regards to Illan MESLIER, that would make sense for Liverpool for me. It would make sense in terms of that keeper coming in and being able to hold the mantle of the Liverpool front man when Alisson does leave, or whatever that may be. We know he's got serious levels on his contract left, Alisson, obviously, because keepers can go till the 42, 43 nowadays. But it's going to be fascinating to see. And as I said, apparently they're looking at him. Apparently they've been looking at him for ages now. And once again, it begs the question with Leeds: how much would that take for someone like Illan Meslier to move on? We've brought him for 5 million, which is incredible recruitment from Leeds United. But if they are to stump up the fee for Leeds to Leeds, then what would you guys do? Would you let Illan go? Listen, when Leicester came into the Premier League, Kante, Mahrez, they all left, didn't they? And you know, there is going to have to be a point with Leeds United where some of these players are going to have to be sellable assets. It's just going to be one of those things, and I think the club are going to make no bones about that. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see what Leeds do in terms of Meslier, Phillips, and Raphinha in the next couple of years, because they are our biggest sellable assets. So yeah, going to be fascinating to see, isn't it? On the list as well below, I've got Che Adams. Now, this is another thing. You know, we're talking about the importance of Calvin Phillips. We're talking about the importance of Illan Meslier. We're talking about the importance of Raphinha. Now, Southampton this weekend are going to be without Che Adams and James Ward-Prowse. Huge misses. Absolutely huge misses for Southampton. And, you know, it does fill them with a lot of confidence, because Leeds need to gain some serious momentum in these next couple of weeks, because for me these next 3 or 4 games are absolutely huge. You know, even after these next 3 games, guys, we've then got Leicester, we've then got Tottenham, and that is where the increased difficulty of the games is going to start. So these games are absolutely pivotal for Leeds United, and you're never going to get a better chance to beat Southampton when they're without Ward-Prowse and without Che Adams. You know, Che Adams is the pace on the break. Ward-Prowse, you know, he was in the England squad, you've got to say that, and his set piece delivery, which is where Leeds are massively weak from, is absolutely exquisite. David Beckham-esque, Ian Hart-esque, of course, much better than David Beckham. But yeah, so it's Leeds will never get a better chance. And not only that, guys, but should we be beating Southampton? Should we be beating Southampton? Of course we should. They're below us. We beat them twice last year. You know, we put 5 past them all together last year. We shouldn't be going into this game with any fear, really. Even if James Ward-Prowse is there and Che Adams is there, I think we should be going in full of confidence. I know it's not been a great start, but you know, even if Raphinha isn't there, we've seen increased performances, as I say, from Daniel James. If DJ is to start on the right, Harrison is going to be on the left, and that gives us a little bit of a different balance. It's unpredictability. You know, Southampton are probably expecting Leeds to be starting with Raphinha. Will they be buoyed by Raphinha not starting? Of course they will. I mean, every club in the world is going to be buoyed by that. But I also think it gives Leeds a little bit of a different dynamic, and I think that's where it's going to be fascinating to see exactly what happens against Southampton. And with those guys being considerably weaker, I will say, especially without James Ward-Prowse and Che Adams on the break, they're going to have to move players around as well. So, as I say, we're going to have to figure out what's happening from Marcelo Bielsa's press conference. If there are further Leeds players out, listen, you only get the understanding from Marcelo Bielsa if you asking the direct question. If you say, Marcelo, is Jack Harrison available? He will say either yes or no. But if you skirt around the topic, we won't know until game day. We will not know until game day. You know, that is one thing I've understood from covering Leeds United. Unless you ask this coach, this wonderful coach, the direct question, he will not answer you. And that's why we're all left frustrated on match day when we see 2 or 3 players out. He's just not a general vague man at all. He will give you that specific answer, but he needs a specific question. Next thing I want to talk about, Noah Lang. Now, this guy is now attracting the attention. He's now attracting big clubs. I've seen it online this morning, and I've seen it online this past week, to be honest with you. Noah Lang is attracting the attention of the global phenomenon that is now Newcastle United. Apparently, the Toonami are going to be readying a bid for Noah Lang in January, among some others as well. Noah Lang is attracting attention from the likes, apparently, PSG, Bayern Munich, and apparently Newcastle have been thrown into the mix now. And it just shows the Leeds scouting network. It's as if we get there before everyone else, isn't it? Ben White, Rodrigo De Paul, Matthias Cunha, Noah Lang. It seems that Leeds' long list, Leeds' short list is absolutely fantastic. It seems like the players that we go for, the players that we target, are extraordinarily good players, and it just seems like when you miss the boat, that's when the big boys come hunting. I'm not saying Leeds aren't a big boy, Newcastle are a big boy, but they are going to become a big boy in the next 2 to 3 years, aren't they? I think we're going to see that with the January spend. So are Newcastle going to damage Leeds' chase for Noah Lang? And there's been no there's been no bones about it. Leeds have been, he's very high on the short list. So it's going to be fascinating to see what happens there. But is another winger going to be the solvent to Leeds' problems? For me in January, it has to be a central midfielder. I'm going to do a video on 3 central midfielders I think Leeds should be targeting. So hold out for that video, and I want to see if you guys agree. But Leeds, for me, have got to be targeting central midfielders. You look at Conor Gallagher, and once again, another one we missed out on, for good reason, really. But Conor Gallagher, another one we missed out on, is absolutely tearing it up. He's absolutely tearing it up. And I've just seen Jay there has said as well, Lingard will want Europe. Listen, there's a lot of talk about Lingard. Lingard essentially is going to be available to go from Manchester United for 15 million. Is that something you guys would look at? There's a lot of talk about Harry Winks as well. Is that something you guys would look at? Harry Winks, I'm not 100% convinced on, but Jesse Lingard, I mean, there's a lot of people saying he's not up to the fitness level. Well, how do you know that? How do you know that you've not seen Jesse Lingard in a Leeds United shirt? When he was covering distance for West Ham, he looked very, very proficient. I know this Leeds United side is something completely different and out of the ordinary, but would he be willing to come to Leeds, and would Leeds be willing to put the money down? I don't see him as a Leeds sort of player in terms of when I just look at Jesse Lingard and the attributes you need for this Leeds side. But to question his fitness, I think he's been at a top level throughout his entire career, and I think he'd be able to get to that fitness level pretty easily, to be quite honest with you. But someone like Lingard would be perfect at this moment in time. But the whole tracking back aspect in this 4-1-4-1. He would have to add to this game. He'd have to become a defensive player as well as an attacking player. 4v4 attacking, but 4v4 defending as well. So Paul's saying that Lingard would be a good fit, in my opinion. I'm just going to, sorry if you can see my fat finger, guys. I'm just going to try and get through some of your comments. Connor, are you wearing one of your car seats? No, just a little update on the car seats, right? My steering wheel is here, and I'm on the opposite side. Okay, a lot of people think I have a left-hand drive. I don't. I just sit on the opposite side because it's easy for my phone. It's all about that balance, guys. Any YouTubers will know about that. Any injury updates for tomorrow? We're not sure yet, Louis. We'll figure that out tomorrow with Marcelo Bielsa's press conference. James says, Illan Meslier is great with his feet and has so much potential to understand the interest, but he wouldn't get game time. I'd hold out as his ability will only get better. That's a fascinating one, actually, because Liverpool, when we're looking at that and the attributes of Illan Meslier, it's all about getting the ball quickly to Salah, all about getting the ball quickly to Sadio Mane. So that distribution of Alisson is something that is absolutely pivotal within this Liverpool side. So maybe with Illan Meslier, that's what Klopp's looking at, the Liverpool scouts are looking at. It's that distribution to the wings. Although I would say as a caveat, I love Illan Meslier, but I think that's one of his weaker parts to his game. Me and Brownie talk about it a lot. It's all well and good giving it to the fullbacks, and he's only young, but distributing it to those wingers, I don't think he's as good as a lot of people say he is, really, in my personal opinion. I think that's an element of his game which needs to be improved. Of rumours are garbage, yeah, hopefully. Leeds 4, Southampton 1. Something from Scousers there. Calvin is 100% staying at Leeds, says Philip. DBG, go check him out on YouTube. Well, you probably already do anyway. Massive basketball channel. If Ramsdale is 30 mil, Melee's 40, 50 minimum, I'd agree, mate. 100% minimum as well, by the way. Reading out some more comments. Joe Short says, hi mate, what about Wijnaldum from PSG? Cheeky loan, maybe. Yeah, I mean, what a play when Leeds faced him twice last year. I thought Gini Wijnaldum was one of the standouts on the pitch, and what a fantastic player on the ball and off the ball as well. A real grafter. And that's why I think a lot of Liverpool scouts are looking at Leeds players, because the work ethic, the high level that they set themselves week in, week out, and obviously the talent is something that I think Liverpool will see in Leeds that they see in themselves. There's a lot of transitional attributes from the Leeds players to be able to fit into that Liverpool side. Even when you look at someone like Gini Wijnaldum, let's say hypothetically in a mad world coming to Leeds United, which obviously won't happen, but his attributes completely fit into this Leeds United side. And that's why Jurgen Klopp and the Liverpool setup will be looking at Leeds players, because they want to learn. As I just said, the work ethic's unbelievable, and the distance across the pitch per game is ridiculous. And you saw when we played Liverpool, that Liverpool have those same standards. So that transition will be a lot smoother for Leeds players into that Liverpool side. I'm not touting them out, by the way, but you can just understand why Liverpool are looking at these Leeds players. But it's fascinating to see, to hear, I always thought they'd be looking at Calvin. I don't really know where Calvin would fit. Raphinha, you understand a little bit, but Jota might interrupt that a little bit. But MESLIER is an interesting one. It's a really, really interesting one. And Jack as well here has just said Somerville will shine given game time. That's another thing to discuss as well. Is Somerville going to come in this weekend? Is he going to give a little bit more of the balance? What I'd like to see from Crysencio is more directness. He's only a kid, but more directness. In the under-23s, he just runs at fullbacks, and he's doing this thing for Leeds, and he's barely featured. I want that to be a big caveat, but he's doing this thing for Leeds where you do see a lot of players coming in, and naturally they'll pass it back and recover the ball and look to retain possession and rotate it and cycle it across the midfield. But what I want to see Crysencio do is directly go at the fullback, because when he does it, as we saw against Sunderland the other day for the under-23s, absolutely outrageous. You can't control him, and this is something he's honed as well in the Netherlands. So I'd love to see that from Crysencio if he was to come in. Another wild card. There we go. Someone who Southampton wouldn't expect. Henry has said, when do you think Lewis Bate will get the thumbs up? We'll get the thumbs up, by God. Do you know what, Henry? He's, from watching him, and I've sort of kept quiet on this because it's causing a bit of controversy, isn't it? Talking about Lewis Bate and how he wouldn't be fit for this Leeds side. He's everything we need. Everything we need right now in that middle. The only thing going against him is his stature. But he's everything we need. When you talk about going out and buying a central midfielder, I understand Lewis Bates young, but let's look at Livramento at Southampton, signed by Southampton from Chelsea as a right back. Livramento is their key player this season, 17 years of age. For me, the age doesn't make a difference at this moment in time with this Bielsa side. I think if he's old enough, he's good enough. What is he? 18, 19? Okay, yeah, young, but we've seen so many more younger players come in and make an impact. I see him with time on the ball every single time, every single sort of phase of play. I see a really intelligent head. I see someone who's willing to learn again. I see someone who is very proficient on the ball. And I really don't understand why maybe he's not been given more time. I understand he's trying to get to that next level. I understand he's trying to get, Bielsa's trying to, Mark Jackson are trying to get him to that next level and stuff like that. But I look at him and I just think he's absolutely perfect. And ability-wise, for me, he's better than take Calvin out. He could be on that same level as Matthias Klick in terms of ability. He's just so good. So I just think to myself, I wonder if Leeds will even dip into the market again. But I think we've really screwed ourselves with this Adam Forshaw thing, especially Rads when he came out and just put Adam Forshaw. I mean, that was such a daft thing to put out there, but genuinely the solution could be in the under-23s. I honestly say that. I think he's such a good player. And I love his long distribution. It reminds me of Calvin a lot, and it's just exactly what we need in the midfield. So yeah, sorry mate, a long and short answer to that is, would I like to see Lewis Bate in the lead side? Yes. When do I think we'll see it? I don't think we'll see it, to be honest with you. I think we'll carry on doing a bit of square pegs in round holes. That's what I do genuinely think. João Cadeira, I hope I pronounced that well, mate. I'm from Brazil and must say people here is amazed by Raphinha's talent. He played very well the last two matches with the Brazilian squad, being the best player in both, being coming from the bench. Yeah, João, I mean, we're not surprised, mate. We're not surprised. We had the same thing with Calvin Phillips, got into the England squad, everybody's writing him off. England played last night and they looked like they had an absolute traction engine through the midfield. They looked like they had about a mile through the midfield. Defensively, they looked poor, didn't have much control of the game through the midfield. And once again, we always say it, we expect it. We expect it with Calvin Phillips and Raphinha. I've said he's the best player I've ever seen at Leeds in terms of ability and talent. He's the best player I've seen, above Harry Kewell in terms of going forward. And I don't think I've seen much better. 28 years of age, I've not seen much better than Raphinha in enough. Well, I haven't at all. So yeah, that's definitely something to take into consideration. And just because he's not at Liverpool or Manchester United, this, that, and the other clubs have very good scouting networks, and I think that's normally lost if they're not playing for a top four side. They're not acknowledged. But let me tell you, Raphinha is going to be a top player. I've said it. I think he could get into any squad in the world. It's my personal opinion. Any 11 in the world is a debate, but there's a debate there. Gary Thomas says the problem with Bate is he's very lightweight, but his ability is second to none. What I'd say there, Gary, is I've never seen him being pushed off the ball. I've never seen him get dominated in a midfield capacity when I've watched the 23s. I think there's a lot of people saying that because of his size. I don't think there's many instances where I've seen that. You know, you forget this guy was the captain of the Chelsea Youth Academy. You forget Chelsea were offering him big money. So when does he get into this Leeds side then? Because the talent is beyond belief. And as I said, I'm talking about Livramento there, who's at Southampton, who they bought Livramento from Chelsea, and he's starting week in, week out as a right back, and he's their top performer this season. Talk to any Southampton fan, he's their number one this season. He's 17. So, you know, when do we give him a chance? When does he feature on the bench? When does he start coming on? And then we can judge him. Then we can say maybe we've overhyped him. But in terms of being physically imposed, when I've watched him for the 23s, I'd never see that, mate. You know, you can be small, you can be stocky and very good on the ball, extremely good on the ball, not pushed off the ball. You know, you look at some of the top midfield operators in world football over the past 10, 15 years. Scholes, Xavi, Iniesta. Just because you're small doesn't mean you get physically imposed. Yeah, honestly, yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see what we do with him. Definitely. Tom, big viewer of the channel. Thanks, Tom. Do you think Leeds will consider Bogus in January? It seems like he's really good in Ibiza. Yeah, I mean, I'm good in Ibiza, mate. Just depends how many woo-woos I've had. But no, I think... I don't know why I said that. But no, I think Bogus, it's a different level, isn't it? What is it? Ibiza, CD. I mean, coming back into the Premier League, it's a different level, and I think that's a lot of what people have been talking about in terms of, you know, Lewis Bate and players alike. It's that step up, isn't it? And I think playing at in the Spanish second division to then playing in the Premier League, it's difficult to judge, isn't it? But you do think what's going to happen? What's going to happen with Matthias Bogus? He was sort of the first cohort of new players we got in terms of this Radrizzani structure, and it's going to be fascinating to see. This is it. It says I'm good in Ibiza too. I am actually poor in Ibiza. I'm shocking my drink. DBG says people worried about his size when arguably the best player in the world in that position. Verratti is 5'5". Facts, yeah, and Barella as well, says TMC. I agree. I just think, yeah, I mean, the size thing, okay, it is a thing. Like, don't get me wrong, but as we've just discussed, there's absolute ballers in that position who have you know, just run world football from the midfield. You know, how tall was Pirlo? What, 5'7", 5'8"? There's just numerous examples, isn't there? Especially at this moment in time when it's all about diminutive players in the midfield, you know, getting the ball and releasing it and dribbling with the ball. It's almost, you could argue it's an advantage being smaller, you know, and you got to think the physicality has been taken out of the game as well. Physicality has been essentially taken out of the midfield, you know, any big tackle players roll around, etc., etc. And it is actually being about diminutive and moving the ball quickly, etc., etc. Right, guys, I'm going to leave it at that. I've been going on for 28 minutes. It should have been about 10 minutes. I hope you've enjoyed it. Make sure you like the video. Listen, I apologise if it's gone on a little bit too long, but I hope they've answered all of your questions. Alongside that, guys, if there have been some internet issues, I apologise for that. I'm not at home, as you can tell. But yeah, as you say, share it around. Do us a favour. Subscribe to the channel, as I always say. Like it, and we'll be back with some Southampton preview stuff ASAP. Cheers, guys.